My name is Lisa Field, and I'm the president of the Labor Guild. Welcome to tonight's presentation of the Conversation Corner, a series of talks about issues affecting the labor movement that we are streaming live on Facebook. A little bit about the Labor Guild. We promote good order and justice in today's workplace. The collective bargaining process drives wage equality and economic and social justice in a vibrant democracy. Since 1945, the Labor Guild's mission has been to provide training, support, and connection through labor education, professional training, and personal development through our labor school, workshops, and events such as this. We kick off the first in our series with a chat with members of SAG AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. Joining me tonight is Michele Proud and Tom Kemp. Michele is a local SAG AFTRA member and National VP Midsize Locals. Tom is vice chair of the SAG AFTRA's negotiating committee and VP actor performer of the New England Local. Both are here today expressing their perspectives as members and not on behalf of SAG AFTRA. Thank you both. Let's kick it off with a question about who belongs to SAG AFTRA.
I could start, and Michele will certainly pick me up if I forget anything. We're 160,000 members nationally. We are actors, we're broadcasters, we are stunt people, we are singers, we are dancers, and what's that?
Recording artists.
And recording artists, yes. And so this strike affects the actors, the singers, the dancers, and the recording artists in many respects. And here in New England, I think, check me here, I think we got about 4,000 members. Is that right, Michele?
I have 4,000 members, yeah, in the New England area. So our local covers, Vermont, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and part of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Right, I got them all.
The part of Connecticut where they don't put tomato sauce in their clam chowder. That was sort of defining that.
And how does it work with the contract? So is it like one employer, one contract? If you can just explain that a little bit.
So this is the particular contract that we are currently on strike over is the TV theatrical streaming contract. We collectively bargained with the AMPTP, which is the studios and streamers, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. And so that is one particular contract, but things like commercials or training videos or audiobooks, or certainly the broadcasters. There are many other contracts that are all good to work right now. We are just specifically these contracts that are collectively bargained with the AMPTP. So independent producers, we have some interim agreements. And so if they are independent and they want to sign on to the contract that we are trying to bargain with the AMPTP to be able to produce work now, some interim agreements have been reached so that some of that work continues if it's truly independent.
Yeah, there's some things that might be a little unusual, like the soap operas are on another contract as well, and they can still continue to work, except that the Writers Guild is on strike and they're running out of scripts. So that's the reason they're slowing down.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Some of the variety shows, things like that. So again, if you think about sort of film, classic television, or episodic type work and streaming, that's kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm. And what are the big issues facing your members?
There are a lot. The business has changed dramatically in the last 3 or 4 years. One is residuals. We need to improve our residual formula in streaming. if streaming didn't exist and you had the regular old network television model where show ran on one night and then it reran another time or it reran during the summer, those residuals are adequate. The residuals, if it went to a cable, that would be fine, but they don't anymore. They just run a couple times, maybe a network, and then they go to streaming. And streaming is a very poor residual model because it's really based on the number of people that subscribe to that streamer, and if your show is still on the streamer and available, not whether it's popular or not whether a lot of people watch it or a few people watch it. So that's one of the main things we wanted to approach, and we're approaching it in two different ways. We're approaching it to raise that residual rate dramatically, but also to get a share of the subscription money that these streamers get from our work. And part of the problem is that they won't tell us. They are very proprietary about who's watching the shows, what's the most popular one. And so we need to get a subscription percentage that we're talking with. The other thing is just basic wages, since we have been gone through, all of us, all working people have gone through this enormous inflation in the last few years, and our contracts have not kept up. We need a big improvement in our basic wages, and also the AI issue. The AI issue is here and now. It's not in the future. It's here and now. And as I said in the past, those people who have watched Star Wars, Peter Cushing had a really wonderful role in it, and the gentleman is deceased, and was deceased at the time that the movie started. And his image was captured with old technology. There is new technology now that is so much better, and in 3 years, when our contract is renegotiated, will be so much better. So we need to put guidelines in, we need to put limits on, we need to put it in our contract. I mean, they paid Peter Cushing's estate to use him and Carrie Fisher's estate to use him, but there's nothing in the contract that mandates that. So we need to put that in the contract. And there are other things in the package too, that self-taping auditions, protections for dancers, protections for singers, audio description, many other things. But I think that the ones that I mentioned first are the big ones that
Right.
we've had trouble finding a solution to. What do you think, Michele?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would say the self-tape is probably, when we name the sort of the top 4 things,
Yeah.
self-tape is in there as well. And people might wonder, what is self-tape, right? And it was a thing before COVID where if you recorded yourself remotely and submitted for a role, but then once we had shut down, and then our work started up again because we had all these protocols we put into place, and we went back to work, which is really kind of remarkable in and of itself, working in person during a pandemic when you have to be face to face with people. We had all these safety protocols in place. But what happened was the recording your own auditions exploded. It just exploded, and it became the new industry standard. And so before, you would have industry professionals, casting directors, who were, I mean, they're still casting directors, don't get me wrong, but you would go into the casting director and you would do your audition in person and all of that. And now what's happening is that actors are, in their living room with their spouse or child or whatever, recording the audition, editing it, uploading it, and sending it. And so the onus is now more on the performer. And so that's it. Again, the contract is currently silent on it. And we just want some parameters around what's fair, like what's a fair ask, and what becomes you're asking somebody to do free labor.
Yeah.
Right?
And
That's the bottom line. We're talking about you're being paid for your job. And if, suddenly you're spending hours upon hours of your own time producing these auditions, you've sort of now stepped over into somebody else's job. So it's that balance. Go
And
ahead, Tom.
in the past, just the 24-hour clock limited the amount of people that could be seen, and the amount of material they wanted you to prepare for an audition. But without that limit, the upside was they could see more actors for the roles, and that was great. More people got chances, but they tended to abuse it by giving us a large number of pages to prepare in a short period of time. And so actors have felt that what you're submitting to the producer and the casting director is a tape of you coping with too much material in too short a time. So what we wanted to do was to limit the number of pages that could be requested and expand the amount of time, or delineate the amount of time that you had to prepare for it. And I as a member of the negotiating committee, I find this issue extremely frustrating, because it doesn't cost the producers a dime, and yet they're reluctant to come our way on this. When we were arguing, look, we're the actors. We know how to best present ourselves. We would like you to see the best version of all these actors so you can determine who should get the role.
Mhm.
But they don't want to do that. And that's bewildering and frustrating to me that that they don't move on that. I can understand in negotiations, in labor negotiations, you deal a lot with money,
Mhm.
and they don't want to give you money in any labor dispute. But in this one, that's not money.
Right, right.
This is simply quality of work, and it doesn't cost them a nickel. I said a dime before, but a nickel. It doesn't cost them a
Mhm.
nickel.
And I would just, if I could just go back to a little bit, Lisa, talk about the talking points, so the residuals in streaming. So this contract is collectively bargained every 3 years. This is, I believe, the third contract cycle that we're discussing streaming. So prior to 6 years ago, there wasn't any streaming in the contract. So this is a relatively new concept.
Yeah.
And we tried to come up with a fair structure, and we looked to television and what television looked like, and we tried to figure out how that might match up, and tried to look at, well, the time has come. It's pretty obvious that the missing link is in streaming, people have the ability to watch entire seasons. Like you could watch top to bottom, you can choose a show and watch all of it, and you can just binge it. And if everybody's doing that, like during shutdown, everybody's doing that, they're binging the same shows, you would think that those actors would receive higher residuals because their image is being used over and over again, right?
Mhm.
That's residuals. It's our product is our image and our creative work, and the contract protects that and says how you can use it, when you can use it, and what it costs. So to be fair, you would think that people who are being seen more in these programs would make more money. That is not how it works in streaming right now at all. And so we're just trying to find a more fair compensation package. We're trying to find a way that it makes more sense, so that if your program is super successful, then you benefit the same way that, the studios and streamers are benefiting from it. It's just a fair piece of the pie, if you would. The economic piece, the increases, I think, again, speaking to people in labor, we have had extraordinary inflation. Everybody knows this. And so clearly we're going to be asking not for our standard, whatever, 3, 3, and 3, or whatever it is. If doing that would put us behind where we were in the last contract cycle. So obviously we need, the statistic is out there, 87% of our 160,000 members don't earn the minimum in a year to qualify for benefits. And that minimum that they would have to make is $26,000. So this isn't about people getting rich. This is about getting fairly compensated for our work. And then the third thing, the AI, artificial intelligence, again, like I said before, the contract says how our image can be used, what are the boundaries around that, and what we would be compensated for that, and under what circumstances it could be used. Well, the same way streaming 2 contract cycles ago wasn't in the contract, AI is not in the contract. So we're not saying we don't want our images used in that way. We're saying if you're going to, then there has to be rules. When you can use it, there has to be consent as part of it, and there has to be compensation. Like that's the way that it works. These are basic labor issues. And so it's frustrating because a lot of times you hear, oh, it's, those poor Hollywood actors, blah, blah, blah. But really, we're just regular workers. We're your neighbors. We're, just trying to make a living. Go ahead, Tom, you had something else to say?
Yeah, no, you said it right. I mean, it's these are working class people that are making this these films, and in many ways we're the product, because it is our face and our image and a little glimpse of our soul that we try to imbue our characters with, and try to give life to what the writer has written. So it's important that our image being used is compensated. They accused us of wanting to go back to the old days, and I say, if we wanted to go back to the old days, we would have outlawed AI or tried to outlaw it. But we know it's here. We know we have to deal with it. So right now we're going to deal with it. And the producers had said that they had offered us a historic offer on AI. And I said, well, of course it's historic. We've never talked about it before. It didn't exist 3 years ago. And I think, to talk financially, if you want to talk historic, we're going back to the feudal period where you had lords, in the castles with all this money, and the poor other saps are, living in the mud trying to get by. The economic disparity is similar right now when you talk about the amount of money that the CEOs are making, and admonishing us for being unreasonable in trying to get more people qualified for our health plan, to get more people a better living, doing what they've been trained to do. But I think Michele said it very well.
I think it's a big misconception, because I think when people hear SAG AFTRA, they're thinking, all these millionaires, not realizing there's so much more to it. There's so many people that are involved. So if you could talk about what other unions besides SAG AFTRA are involved in a movie. Let's just use a movie, for example.
Well, you have the Writers Guild. It comes up with a script, and if you don't have a script, you don't have a movie. And then the Directors Guild will be involved, and then SAG AFTRA for the cast. But then there's also IA, which is the IATSE, which is basically all the crew. It falls under that, and it's an enormous cooperative effort. Collaborative effort to make a movie, and you need a large number of people. And then the Teamsters, because a lot of times you're moving from location to location. People have to be transferred safely and on time, and that's the Teamsters. So you have, I lost track, 5, I guess, at least unions involved. And then often when you're on location, you have your local police details, for safety. We have all these other businesses that rely on the film business, dry cleaners and caterers and all of those people that
Hotels.
Well, yeah.
Hotels. So you have, your hotel workers and your, so lots of unions and lots of other businesses. And it
Yeah.
touches, it reaches out and touches so much of the community. It really, there's so many businesses that are suffering, during the strike, and yet people have been incredibly supportive because, again, we're fighting for basic needs. We're working class people fighting for the future of our industry. So, our livelihoods.
We were, the reason, that it was a very emotional decision, though unanimous, by our committee to go on strike when we just felt we were running up against a brick wall in negotiations, because we realized how many other people we would put out of work. And that really weighs on you, and it weighs on me to this day constantly. How many people, friends of mine who are in the IA or Teamsters or in Writers Guild, that are out of work because of producers who just didn't want to talk to us. I mean, at that last night on July 12th at 5 minutes of midnight, when we just said, we have to go, we're going to walk, this isn't happening. We offered at that point to say, we will continue to talk. We will continue to talk through the night, but at 1 minute past 12 on the 14th of July, we are going on strike, but we will continue to talk. And we were told that we were being uncivilized. And as our chief officer, executive officer said, you do know how strikes end, don't you? It's when people continue to talk and then you come to a deal. So if you don't want to talk to us, then there's no reason for us to stay here. We're willing to do that, but they weren't willing to do that. And they weren't willing to do that with the writers. Fortunately, it seems tomorrow, the chief negotiator for the AMPTP and the chief negotiator for the writers are going to meet to see if there's a way back to the table, which is hopeful. For me, the most hopeful sign was that the studios are talking to each other, because that was, I think, the real problem that we ran into, because these are normally companies that are competing with each other. They're structured differently, and they do different things and have different needs. And you might propose one thing that Netflix would say, oh yeah, that's fine, but ABC doesn't want to do that. So you were running into those sort of conflicts. So what I was happy about was to see that the producers are going to actually sit down. The CEOs of those companies are going to sit down and talk, because they know that we're serious, and it has completely shut down the business. And this is a major industry for the United States. I don't know if people realize, I think it's the third or entertainment, American entertainment is like the third or fourth largest source of foreign exchange for the United States economy. And the people that make that product are the ones that get shafted. And we're the ones that want a little more of the pie. We're not looking for what we want. We're looking for what we need and looking for what we deserve. That's where it is right now. That's my quick speech about this strike.
I think there's always a misconception from people who are not necessarily within the labor movement, within unions, about how difficult the decision is to go out on strike. I think people, the general public kind of thinks it's kind of a blasé, oh, they're going on strike. It's a very difficult decision. It's kind of the last resort, so to speak. No one wants to do it. It's devastating financially, you name it. It's just such implications for it. And it's just so difficult. So.
And it's not something we do all the time. It's not something we do all the time. I mean, this is, I guess the level of unity that we had behind the strike authorization, the level of unity that we had on our negotiating committee, it speaks to the fact that these are basic needs that we're fighting for. And no, nobody takes it lightly. Everybody takes it very seriously. But when you have bargaining partners that just don't show up ready to bargain, it is a last resort. You have to make that last resort. But yeah, it's hard all around for sure.
Yeah, we had a 98% authorization from our membership to authorize a strike. And our committee, and probably as in many unions, there are differences of opinion, there are different factions and such, and we've had that, probably since the organization of Screen Actors Guild and of AFTRA, or AFRA at the time. But we unanimously voted on the package. We unanimously put it to our national board, and we unanimously voted to go on strike and to use that authorization that the membership had given us. So there's a unanimity of opinion about what is necessary here. And it's really a factor of the very rapid change in the viewing habits of the American audience. And we've had to adjust to that. And as our president, as Fran Drescher, our president, has said, we didn't invent the streaming model. We didn't decide that you were going to invest all your money in streaming and that's how you're going to put your product out there. And if it's not working for you, well, it's not our fault. Figure it out. But we're not going to take the hit for that bad decision of yours.
Right. Well, and on the flip side, again, when we had a global pandemic and when, shutdown occurred, they very happily hung their hats on our work. Like they were delighted that our work lifted them and carried them through at a time when, lots of businesses were failing and all of that. And everybody turned to the streamers. Everybody turned to their devices. They couldn't go out. They couldn't do anything else. And so, just a few short years ago, we were so valued. But then when we say, okay, well, then compensate us for that. Oh, no. Don't be ridiculous. It's kind of sad, but like I said, it's a 3-year contract. If we don't get these things in the contract now, 3 years from now is too late. It's just late.
Yep. Exactly, Michelle. Yep.
So if viewers want to learn more information about SAG AFTRA, where would they go? I mean, well, we're going to put it in the comment section of the thing, but just some general things about maybe the website. Where could they find more information about, one, the organization, and then also, two, if people are interested in assisting in any way, public actions, or is there, I know some A-listers, if you will, is that what you call them, are giving some money to the foundation. If you can talk about the foundation and what the foundation does, that would be great.
Sure. So absolutely, the website is sagaftra.org. That's the main website. There's a drop down for locals, and we're the New England local. You can find us on there. Also, in social media, I guess, across all platforms, but it's funny, apparently Facebook is still the most popular place for people to get information on social media. And there is a SAG AFTRA, an official SAG AFTRA Facebook page as well. So that's a great place. A lot of the activities that are going on right now pop up there. I do want to give a shout out. I'm going to point, oh, I got the right way.
There you
I'm
go.
pointing to somebody made my background for me. We
I have
have
to
a
figure out how to do that, Michelle.
we have
Ah,
a big rally on coming up next week. So Wednesday, the 9th at 3:45 p.m. in the oldest public park in America, Boston Common, at the bandstand. We are going to have a big rally, and we want you to come. Come, bring your friends, bring your family, bring your kids, teach them, teach them well. We really hope a lot of our labor brothers and sisters will come, but we hope just friends and family and supporters will all be there. We want to make enough noise that they can hear us on the other coast.
Yeah.
So 3:45, Wednesday, August 9th, Boston Common. Did you want to say something, Tom?
Yeah, well, I was talking about the SAG AFTRA Foundation, which has been organized for those of our members who are in financial need and such. And I've been really impressed with some of our high profile members have really stepped up. The Rock gave over $1 million to the foundation just to be used for people in trouble. And Ben Affleck and J-Lo and Matt Damon have all stepped up. George Clooney and several other members, Meryl Streep, they've stepped up with large donations to the foundation, because we're going to need it, because I don't see this as a short strike.
And it should be, I just want to say, you're absolutely right, Tom. But no donation is too small. It's all appreciated. And the other thing is that the SAG AFTRA Foundation is there for members always. Like, it's great that they're there during the strike, but during COVID, during shutdown and all of that, members are able to apply to the foundation for help paying their rent and, taking care of their bills, just regular people that just can't quite put ends together for any reason. And so the foundation has been incredibly supportive. And in addition to that, they also do college scholarships, and one of my sons got a scholarship. I think Tom's son did too, through the foundation, because we're members. They were able to apply. So things like that. It's really a great organization. They have trainings and things like that for members. So yes, absolutely. If anybody wanted to contribute financially, the SAG AFTRA Foundation would be the place to go.
Yeah, and those people that I mentioned, those high pros, they didn't walk into this business, with a silver spoon. They worked their way up, and Meryl Streep was a secretary. She was a waitress, that sort of thing. So they appreciate what it means, and they're very fortunate that they were in that position. But Michelle's right. It's like everybody gives. I give some of my residuals, every time I get them to the foundation, just to try to support it as best I can. But I think it will be a necessary safety net for a lot of people right now, if this strike and exacerbated by the fact that our residuals had been reducing over the last few years, so people aren't as financially whole as they might have been in the past.
Exactly. And one other way that people can support us, and this might be a little bit more creative way, a creative approach, but again, we have other contracts that are not struck. Like, so if somebody wanted to make, especially something like a local commercial, for their organization, something that would be made and played in New England, we actually have a regional code for that. And it makes it very affordable and very easy to hire our members. And then that would be just reaching out to the local SAG AFTRA office to get more information on that. But there's also training videos, or like, you know, like I said, audiobooks, voiceovers, like there's all different kinds of things, kinds of ways. So, you know, hire us, keep us working. We like to say we're easy to work with, hard to fight.
There you go.
There you go. I'm just thinking as I'm looking at myself here, I could certainly use an IATSE brother or sister to fix my lighting here, but so I'm going to turn to Andrew and ask, are there any questions from our audience?
So I'm not taking note of any currently, but I do see there's some really nice comments from folks. I was able to share a lot of those resources. Thank you, Michele and Tom, for, you know, taking note of a few of those. I put your Facebook page up on there, on the foundation link, and the link to the main SAG AFTRA website. So hopefully folks watching can certainly take advantage of all that being right there in the comments.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. I think one thing that I just like to also say for all my labor brothers and sisters out there is that this business, the film, the television, and the radio business has been unionized for a very, very long time. And when you work on a movie or a television show, virtually everyone on that set is a member of a union, and they are making a decent living. And AFTRA started as AFTRA, the American Federation of Radio Artists, before there was television. And Stars, you know, started the Screen Actors Guild back when the studio system was paramount, and they were able to organize and get a lot of people. There's somebody I heard one story that the Frankenstein, the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, after a couple of 24-hour days, everybody on that cast said, "Where do I sign up?" And just for their own protection. So, you know, Dracula and Frankenstein were really very good members, very founding members of our organization. But it's been there for a long time. It's been, I think it's 90 years, I think is the, I think we just had SAG, I think, had its 90th birthday, I think not too long ago.
Yeah.
I think the day we decided to go on strike actually was the 90th birthday.
You're right.
I think it
Happy
was.
birthday. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, and when we actually went on strike, that was my birthday. So
Oh, double whammy.
that's what I got for my birthday this year.
You know, and we have had such great support by other unions in particular. And, you know, we had a really wonderful event the other day. The NAACP, right? Oh my God, NAACP.
Yeah.
I have this little dyslexic thing. I'm sorry about that. But I think it's NAA now, CP, right? That's
Yeah.
the preference. And the Greater Boston Labor Council came together to support the writers and the actors on strike. And it was amazing. It was amazing and so inspiring to have other union leaders stand up and say, we are all SAG AFTRA. We are all in this together. It was just like, I can't even tell you how it lifted my spirits. And so I just kind of want to give a shout out and say how important that was and how meaningful it was and how much we appreciate, you know, everybody coming together like that. Did you want to say something too, Tom?
Well, you know, yeah, because we were talking to the teachers, talking to the hotel workers, talking to the painters union, their public service employees, the black labor movement. It was really a wonderful, they understand. And it was nice to see somebody from outside of our business and talk to a lot of those people who just understood how this was that our fight was a fight for all labor. Our business is is so stratified with the owners of these businesses being fabulously wealthy and getting, the two guys that run Netflix get $50 million a year and $51 million a year, two salaries. That's it. And we're just looking for a living wage. Other unions get that disparity and they understand that that's what we're fighting for. We're not fighting to be rich. We're fighting to be respected and to be valued. And as I said earlier, we're the product. And if we can't be valued in this business, then the business is going to fail. Somebody had said in one article that I read that actually the writers and the actors strike is trying to save the industry from just mediocre crap that will come from AI generated scripts and people who are only interested in a profit motive. One of the reasons our business and our work is exported around the world is the quality of it is really very good. And the writing is good and the acting is good and the production values are good. And we're part of the effort to maintain that industry.
Great points. Great points. I want to kind of loop back a little bit more about AI and I'm sure, you know, you hear about actors being very selective about the work that they do, you know, for whatever reason. And I'm sure that one concern with AI must be that, you know, you don't want it to be a blanket using your image and who you are in some sort of a blanket across the board and ends up being used in material that you yourself wouldn't have agreed to. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. And, you know, some of this is already, so for example, background actors. So a lot of people don't think about, if you're watching, you know, any kind of film or episodic, you know, television or streaming, there's the principal actors who are speaking, but then there's all the other actors who are creating the scene around them. And so sometimes when you have like a giant stadium scene, say, you know, they might, there are all kinds of different, you know, tricks that they can use. They can do some CGI. They can, you know, they used to have these, I think they still do. They're like dummies, you know, like they're not actual people. It's like half a person, and they would put them next to real people to fill in the blanks in a big stadium or whatever. Well, what we're seeing now is they're scanning people in different outfits, and then they're placing them, you know, they're placing them into different places in the film. And, you know, the technology didn't used to be there. You didn't really think about, well, gosh, could they save this and use this on a different project? And that question started coming up recently as more and more of this kind of stuff is happening. And sometimes people sign up for it. Sometimes they're just told, go stand over there and do this thing on their day of work. And it's like, there's no time to process. There's no time to figure out, am I okay with this? But then you don't know if your image is going to pop up someplace else. You don't know how that's going to be used, if it can be stored and used somewhere else or fed into a computer and generate lots of iterations of you, but still your face maybe. I mean, I don't know. There's just a lot of possibilities. And again, I think as union members, we expect the union, our contracts are going to keep us safe. They're going to keep us, you know, we're going to know what to expect. There aren't going to be any big surprises. That's what the contract's for. And so now we're in this area where there's just, again, the contract's silent on that. And what does that mean? And I know Tom has mentioned one of the concepts that was discussed in the negotiations was when the consent happens.
Yeah, because often when you get to a set and you get to where your dressing room is or something, and you have a stack on the first day, you have a stack of papers, And it says sign here, initial here, and do all that sort of stuff. And you can't start work until you do that. And so what they wanted to do with this consent for use of AI was to put that in that stack at the beginning of your work. Well, you don't have any leverage. You don't have any negotiating power at that point. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that if you give consent to your image to be used somewhere else, it's at the time of use, not your first day of work. Because at your first day of work, you don't have any power. If you want to work that day, you've got to sign those things and everything, and it will be a separate document delivered when they decide they want to use it. And they can't use it unless you give your consent. And the union has to give the consent too, because they don't want to start a precedent, establish a precedent as somebody just giving away their rights. The union won't let that happen, which is a second safeguard. So it's when is the consent given, and it's a little creepy. You know, you can see how it could be used. Say I was in a movie and I was in a couple scenes, and at the end of the movie, when the movie's production is over, the crew is dismissed, everybody's gone, and in editing, they decide, oh gosh, we need another scene with Tom where you see his character put a briefcase somewhere. Well, I might give them consent to use AI to generate that, but I would not charge them just today. If I had been a weekly player before, I might charge them a weekly contract to do that, but I would be giving my consent then. I wouldn't have given my consent on the first day that if this comes up, they can use it. It has to be then, because that gives you control over what you, Lisa, what you were just talking about is, and a scene that I would never agree to, you know, for a sexual or a violent any vile reason, I might not agree to do that. And at this point, I can say, no, you can't use my image. You can't use my image. So it really depends on when that consent is generated. And we want it generated when the actor has the most power to do that.
And it's worth noting, I mean, you know, we're sort of talking, assuming people sort of have an idea of labor, but it's worth noting that this collectively bargained contract sets the minimums. This is scale. This is the minimums. And the vast majority of our members rely on these minimums. The minimum basic. Now, if you have, you know, you have a little bit more clout and you can negotiate above that, well, go have that. But these are just the most basic parameters around which our employers must work, and if they want to work with us. And so that's why it's so important that we get these things in the contract, because they are the protections that we rely on, most of us.
Mm-hmm. Because you don't have leverage all the time, particularly when you're starting a job or offered a job. They can't offer you a job and say, and you also have to sign this right away to get the job. That's not something we're going to allow anymore. There have been people, as Michele said, there are people in the past, background people, and also principal roles who will just show up on the set and not be told that they're going to be scanned. And all of a sudden they said, oh, go over there in this machine and get scanned. And they go, what's that? You know, why do I have to do that? You know, a friend of mine who's also on the committee said, you know, she showed up in Australia at a movie, and all of a sudden they wanted to scan her, and she said, why? She said, and they thought it was a little sci-fi aspect to it, so that they might want to do a creature on her or something. So they wanted her data, but that data collection has gotten much more sophisticated now. And it will retain, it can retain every bit of information that's ever fed into it. So, and as I said earlier, the Peter Cushing in the Star Trek, the Star Wars, that was old technology that they captured his data with, and it's gorgeous. And so all these companies have all those movies that they have copyright law rights to, that they can feed into these machines. So we do have to put these guardrails in place right now so that you can't pull out somebody who's deceased or an actor who's maybe gone on to some sort of a better place in their career and try to pull out something from when they were 18 and put that in a movie. So without their consent, without compensation. I mean, the egregious thing that the producer said they didn't do was with the background actors, which was that they could hire them for a day, scan them, use them in that day, and then save that scan to use in any movie they wanted to without permission and without compensation. And they said, "Oh, we didn't say that." Well, I'm on the committee. It was in front of me. I saw it, and I thought, well, this is easy to rectify. If that's what you mean, then we write it that way, and we've got one thing off the list that we don't have to worry about in negotiations. But when we get back to the table, maybe that's where we'll be, but we're not at the table yet.
So explain to me about the machines. I guess I don't understand. So there's these machines that what do you walk into and they scan? I mean, explain how this works.
Well, I have not been scanned. I don't know. Have you, Michelle?
No,
Yeah.
I haven't. I mean, the way that it was described to me for background was that you put the outfit on and then you step in and they photograph you, multiple times, and then you change into a different outfit and and maybe all the way around. I don't exactly know. I haven't done it myself. I mean, honestly, I wasn't sure I was comfortable with it. I wasn't really, I don't know. So anyway, I have not done it. The bottom line is I have not done it.
Yeah, it photographs you and from every aspect, from every, and it also captures your voice.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if background actors have to do
Okay.
that, or principal actors. They'll also capture your voice, and then they record everything that you do in that movie and feed it into what is an LLM, large language machine or model. I'm not exactly sure. I was learning all this during the negotiations, and then it's a huge computer that stores all this data, and then they can spit it out and use it in any way they want. And Netflix just last week advertised for a head of AI technology for their company, and the starting salary is $900,000 a year.
Wow.
So if we have anybody out there watching tonight, a very nice job open in every studio is looking for an AI tech.
I'd love to have an expert on AI come and have a little chat with us as to what all these implications are
Yeah.
across, because this, I'm sure, right across all industries is implications here. So I'd like to better understand that. Andrew, is there a question?
Yeah, so we just had one come in a couple of minutes ago. We had somebody ask what the impact was, if any, of the COVID protocols on residuals, or how they factored in. And then we also had a couple of SAG AFTRA members that are commenting that they have been scanned and kind of saying, you enter this room, there's multiple cameras, multiple angles, and kind of a sci-fi-esque experience there. So,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thanks for that, guys. As far as COVID restrictions on the residuals, if we didn't have the COVID restrictions, we wouldn't be any work. So that we went back to work before a lot of industries, because the producers in all the unions sat down with their own experts, medical experts, and they came up with a protocol, so we were able to work. Had there not been those restrictions or those protocols, we would have been 6 months to a year out from working again. And so that product that had been manufactured or produced at that time is now producing residuals. So thank God we had them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, I think a lot of where the eyeballs went during shutdown was to the streamers. And again, streaming, how many people actually watch the content does not impact what your residuals are. So, and it should have, I mean, that would have been right. And that's what we're bargaining for right now, but it didn't. It didn't change it. And, you know, in that way, across the board, maybe yes, but not individual, like not where the eyeballs were, let me put it that way. Yeah, so.
I find that shocking. You know, you watch these hit shows and then to find out that the residuals, I mean, you always hear, I'm going to date myself, that the old, you know, Happy Days and Brady Bunch and, you know, that playing over and over and over, and that actors still get residuals on that. But then to
Yeah.
find out that hit stuff that I binged during COVID, I think there was some memes of some of the actresses from some of the hit shows showing like hardly anything, you know, checks with hardly anything. That's so shocking when, you know, it's
Yeah.
such a hit show. It's just, that is so
All out there. Yeah, it's all out
shocking.
there. And people are doing just that. You're right. There are a lot of actors who are showing their residual checks and you go, what? That doesn't even make sense. That was such a huge hit and you were so successful. And again, this was what I keep thinking of it and forgetting it, but again, I can't emphasize enough what our individual, our images and our craft, that is our product, right? That's our brand. That's what we have. And we protect it, because overuse, then sometimes you're not eligible for other things, right? If you're overexposed in one thing, then you probably aren't going to be used for something else. Or if you're associated with a specific character, then you might not be invited to audition for other things because you're that character. So, you know, there's that piece of it. But there's also, even like going back to the AI thing, we're always so careful or incorporating even like self-tapes, like, you know, knowing that there are rules around my self-tape and that, you know, knowing that my audition can't be used for something else, that's already a thing. But we protect that. I don't want to put my voice or my image or my craft out there for free when that's what I'm bargaining with as my livelihood, you know?
And people are making money off of that at the time.
Right. So that it all it circles back around to that. If like all of the different pieces put together, it's looking to the contract to just set the fences. Just set the fences. That's all.
Mhm.
Which is what every union wants, right? The contract out.
Exactly.
Have some parameters. I'm watching the time. Any other questions, comments, Andrew, that were on the Facebook?
No, that looks to be it for now.
Any final comments that you have a couple of minutes? Any final comments y'all want to?
Come to the Common next week. Please come be there. We want to see you. No, seriously, though, it would be great. And we will continue to have strike activities going forward. We will continue to put them out on the Facebook page and so forth. But yeah, we really do want everyone to come out next Wednesday for the rally. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, no, just I alluded to it before. I mean, we are the product that they are selling. We imbue this with part of our soul. And I remember it was something I learned about Native Americans, and then when they first encountered photography, they were reluctant to have their pictures taken, because when they saw what it was, they thought that the photographer had stolen part of their soul. And they weren't exactly wrong. You know, when we give a performance, it's us, it's from our heart. We're exposing that sort of part of us, and that's what the product is. And that's what these companies are making money from. And I agree to that. I just want a fair share of that. And it is not just me making a piece of machinery or something, or a product to sell. I'm showing you my soul. I'm giving you part of who I am. And that's the product. Every actor does that. Michele does that. Every other actor does that when they work. And whether they're aware of it or not. And so that's why this is so personal and important to us, that we need to be respected for that. We need to be valued for that, that what our contributions are drives the industry. And as President Drescher says, you know, we're the hub of the wheel. She said, without us, it falls apart. And so we need to be valued for that, and we need to be compensated fairly as an integral part of the product.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us on our first conversation, corner. It's been so interesting. I wish you the best of luck. You know, hopefully you'll get back to the table,
Yeah.
get some good dialogue going, get a good settlement, right? That's what we all hope for.
Thank you.
Lisa, thank you for putting this together. Thank you, and really enjoyed it.
Thank you. So such a pleasure. I also want to thank Bruce Tran and Andrew Stady from the Labor Guild for doing the technology. I am going to talk to an IATSE person to figure out this lighting though. And folks, again, watch out. We put the links right in the Facebook chat. So then that way you can see where to find more information. We hope to see you all over at the Boston Common next week in support of SAG AFTRA. So thank you very much and have a great night. Thanks.
Good night.
All right.